Hi, this is Hubert Uplook. A lot of people over the years have told me that they had a hard time with FM synthesis and synthesizers like the Yamaha DX7. I'm here to give you two great tricks so that you use them easily, no problem. The first trick is that we're going to think in terms of stacks instead of oscillators. The second trick is that we're going to make a detuned saw wave, which is a great base for all your synth sounds. So for this, I'm going to use ChipSynth OPS7, but really any FM synth could do. The other thing is that I'm going to start with an initialized patch. So this is going to be our basic sine wave. Okay, so first step, think in stacks. We've got 6 oscillators going all over the place. This is not good. What we're going to do, we're going to think in stacks. It's going to be 2 stacks. A lot simpler. So start with 1 stack. Or 1 stack has done the fusion dance. The 2 oscillators in it aren't independent. They fuse together, they make one sound, they work together. It's one thing. So our bottom oscillator is going to control the volume, and our top oscillator is going to control the brightness of the sound. Hear that? And since every oscillator has its own envelope, that means we can have a nice envelope either on the volume or on the brightness. So if I set the sustain to nothing and I give it a great nice decay, see, this is a great sound already, but it's still missing something. Unfortunately, FM synth is going to have a slightly artificial sound by default, but we can help it a lot along by giving it feedback. So we're going to change our feedback loop placed in the algorithm, and we're going to increase our feedback, and see, it gives it a much more natural sound. You have to be slightly careful with your feedback, because if it's all the way up, you can't set your top oscillator level too high. It has to be under like about 83. So we've got our saw wave. That's perfect. But with our stack, we can do all the other waveforms too, simply by changing the frequency of the top oscillator. So right now it's only 1 times the bottom frequency, so basically the same frequency, and we've got a saw wave. But if I set it to twice the frequency, see, we've got a square wave. We can do all clarinets, Nintendos, all day long with this thing. And if I simply make it a little less bright, see, we've got a triangle wave. And we can keep going. See, with a frequency of 3, now we've got a guitar-like sound. And with the frequency of 4, we've got a second square wave. And if we get at 5, then something magical happens. We've got the famous FM bell. We can do xylophones with that. We can do marimbas, vibraphones, electric pianos, anything. All you have to do is increase the modulator frequency. So 7 is great too. And you can keep going. So let me set it back to saw wave. Another thing you can do is that you can change the frequency of the carrier, the bottom oscillator. And what happens is that it shifts your spectrum up. So this lets you create 4 mounts, bandpass filter effects, oboes, that kind of stuff. One great trick is that if I set it back to 1, you see I've got an OK bass, but if I set it to 2, see, we've slightly shifted the spectrum of our bass, and it gives it a great body. So awesome. So we've got our first saw wave, and as I've said, our goal was to have 2 detuned saw waves. We've got our first one, so let's use our second stack. So I'm turning it on, increasing the volume of our bottom oscillator. Okay, great. Now our second stack has a little problem. We've already used our feedback loop, but we've got 4 oscillators that are in kind of cascade. So we're going to use that to create our saw wave timbre instead. So we're going to set our first modulator to 72 and our second one also to 72, and our third one we're going to set it to 82. And look at that, we've already got our saw wave. And like the first saw wave, we can have it decay over time in terms of brightness. So what we have to do is we set our envelope sustain point to 0, and then we give it a nice long slow decay. And we're going to do it with all our top oscillators, not just the bottom one. And the reason is that it's going to give us a more, like a richer decay, because we've got more oscillators changing level. It's a better sound. So we've got our first saw, our second saw. We play them together, not bad. But now all we have to do is detune them, and look at that. We've got a rich synth sound, synth brass, all of the things easy to do, and plus we've got a great bass for doing all sorts of synth sounds. We can have like square waves and saw waves. Why not? Or how about square waves and square waves? Or how about we set them in octaves? Sure. Another great trick is that since our second stack has 4 oscillators in it, we can do all sorts of frequency shenanigans with it. So for instance, we can set one oscillator, any oscillator, to have the frequency. And look at that, we've got a sub oscillator. Or you can set the frequency of one of the oscillators to fixed tune and set, like a kind of low frequency. And look at that, it's practically an LFO. Or you can set it to some other weird frequency. And look at that, we've got a kind of reedy sound. This is basically a replacement for pulse wave. You can do clavy, guitars. That kind of sound is super easy. All you have to do is use a stack with 3 or more oscillators. Have like some ones in there, and then like a 5 or 7 in the middle. It does great, like funk FM sounds. So you can do this all along. So you've got all your bass waves. You're ready and set. The last thing you can do is you can change the structure of your oscillators. For instance, we've got this kind of Y configuration on a second stack, and it's gonna give it a slightly more mellow sound because it's got like less cascading, like distortion things going on. And we've got all sorts of other configurations. So for instance, this is going to create a mess because we've only got one bottom oscillators and everything else is kind of messing it up. So plenty of great options. So tons of fun. So I'm wishing you that you have a lot of great fun doing FM synth, and have a nice day.